I've always believed that money reveals people's true characters. After 30 years as CEO of one of the country's largest private investment firms, I'd seen wealth turn saints into demons, but nothing prepared me for Melissa. The engagement party was in full swing at my son Michael's penthouse apartment. Crystal glasses clinked, designer dresses swished, and fake laughter echoed off marble walls. I stood in my simple white dress, watching my future daughter-in-law work the room like a politician at a fundraiser. Miranda. Melissa's voice carried the artificial sweetness I'd grown to recognize. She air-kissed my cheeks, her red lipstick perfectly applied. We need to have a little chat about the wedding. I noticed my son Michael hovering nearby, looking anxious. He'd always been sensitive about money, perhaps because I'd raised him to earn his own way rather than rely on my fortune. As far as he knew, I was just a moderately successful investment advisor. The truth about my wealth was known only to my lawyers and trustees. Of course, dear, I smiled politely. What's on your mind? Melissa linked her arm through mine, steering me toward a quieter corner. I found it, the perfect wedding dress. It's a one-of-a-kind piece from Paris. The designer is a dear friend. How wonderful! I kept my voice neutral, already sensing where this was heading. It's rather exclusive. She paused for effect. $80,000. But absolutely worth every penny for your only son's wedding, don't you think? Michael's face paled. Mel, honey, we discussed this. Hush, darling. She waved him off. This is between me and my future mother-in-law. After all, it's tradition for the mother-in-law to buy the dress. I took a slow sip of my champagne. I'm not familiar with that tradition, Melissa. Oh, all the best families do it. She laughed that tinkling laugh that never reached her eyes. Besides, you wouldn't want people talking about how you couldn't provide properly for your new daughter, would you? The room seemed quiet, though perhaps that was just my focused attention on this moment. I think Michael and you should choose a dress within your budget. Her smile froze. Excuse me? Your budget, I repeated calmly. The one you and Michael set for your wedding. I'm contributing the agreed-upon amount for the venue, as discussed. But this is different. Her voice rose slightly. This is my dream dress. Michael, tell her. My son shifted uncomfortably. Mom, if you could help. I mean, we pay you back. No, I kept my voice firm but kind. You both have good jobs. If you want an $80,000 dress, you can save for it. Melissa's facade cracked. Save for it? Save for it? She gripped her wine glass tighter. Do you know who I am? My family's name? I know exactly who you are, dear, including the fact that her family's supposed wealth was mostly smoke and mirrors, though she didn't need to know I'd had her thoroughly investigated months ago. You bitter old woman. The mask fell completely. You're just jealous because you never had a beautiful wedding. Michael told me you got married in a courthouse. I had married in a courthouse and built a billion-dollar empire while everyone underestimated me, but she didn't need to know that either. Not yet. Melissa, please. Michael started. No. She was causing a scene now, her voice carrying across the room. Your mother is a stingy, selfish witch. She probably has money hidden away, hoarding it while her own son's fiancé has to compromise on her special day. If she only knew about the video I'd recorded last week after overhearing her tell her friend about her plans to access the family money once she was married. The video that would be played at the trust fund reading, the trust fund she thought she'd be receiving as a wedding gift. I think you need to calm down, I said quietly. That's when she did it. With a screech of rage, Melissa threw her full glass of red wine at my white dress. There. Now you know how it feels to have something ruined. The room gasped. Michael grabbed her arm. Melissa, what are you doing? I stood there, red wine dripping down my dress, and felt an odd sense of satisfaction. Because this moment, this very public display, was exactly what I needed. Security, I said calmly. 2 men in suits appeared instantly, not the building security as everyone assumed, but my personal team. Please escort Miss Thompson out. You can't throw me out, she struggled as they approached. This is my engagement party. Michael, do something. But Michael was staring at me, then at the wine stain, then at his fiancée. I saw something shift in his eyes, perhaps the first real glimpse of who he was about to marry. Mel, he said softly, I think you should leave. What? But she's ruining everything. She's just a middle-class nobody, whoa. Actually, I interrupted, pulling out my phone and pressing a button. I'm the majority shareholder of the company that just foreclosed on your father's properties, but we can discuss that at another time. Her face went white. What are you talking about? Security, please. I nodded to my team. As they led her toward the door, I added, oh, and Melissa? The trust fund papers you've been so excited about. They'll be ready for viewing next week. I think you'll find the video message illuminating. After she was gone, leaving behind only the echo of her protests and the smell of spilled wine, Michael turned to me. Mom, what's really going on? I looked at my son, knowing it was finally time for some truths. Let's talk in private, dear. There's quite a lot you need to know about your mother's middle-class business acumen. The guests buzzed with whispers as we left the room, but I didn't care. Sometimes the best lessons about money and character come at the cost of a ruined white dress. The morning after the engagement party, I sat in my private office, not the modest financial advisor space I showed clients, but my real headquarters on the top floor of downtown's most prestigious building. The wall of windows offered a commanding view of the city I quietly helped build. Mrs. Kingston. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your son is here. Send him in. I closed the file I'd been reviewing. Ironically, it contained the complete financial history of Melissa's family's decline. Michael entered, looking like he hadn't slept. He stopped short, taking in the massive office with its elegant furnishings and a wall of international awards, all bearing my name. Mom, his voice cracked slightly. What is all this? This, I gestured around, is what I actually do for a living. Please sit down. He sank into one of the leather chairs, his eyes fixed on the CEO nameplate on my desk. Kingston International Holdings. You're not just a shareholder, are you? You're the founder and CEO, yes. I pulled out a thick folder. And now it's time you understood exactly what that means. But all these years, we lived in a normal house. I went to public school. You made me work summer jobs. I smiled. Because I wanted you to learn the value of work, not the entitlement of wealth. Just like my father taught me. Grandfather. Michael frowned. But he was just a high school teacher who taught economics and invested brilliantly on the side. When he died, he left me two things: seed money and knowledge. I built this empire from that foundation. I opened the folder, spreading out documents. Your grandfather believed wealth shouldn't change who you are, only what you can accomplish. That's why I've lived the way I have, why I raised you the way I did. And Melissa. His voice hardened slightly at her name. You knew about her family. I know everything about the Thompson family. I handed him a report. Their company has been failing for years. They've been keeping up appearances with loans and creative accounting. Last month, they tried to secure financing using fraudulent collateral. Michael read through the papers, his face growing paler. She must have known. She knew. That's why she's been desperate to access what she thinks is our family money. I played the audio recording from my phone. Melissa's voice clear as she told her friend about her plans to secure the bag once she married into my family. Oh God. Michael put his head in his hands. I've been such a fool. No, I touched his arm. You've been trusting. There's a difference. The trust fund she kept talking about doesn't exist, at least not in the way she thinks. I pulled out another document. This is your actual trust fund. It's been growing since the day you were born, but it comes with conditions. He read through the terms. The fund would only be accessible after he demonstrated 5 years of successful independent career growth, maintained a stable personal life, and completed an extensive financial management course. You've met most of these conditions already, I said proudly. Your software development career, your savings habits, your general character, all your own achievements, not because of my money. But now what? He looked lost. The wedding invitations were sent out yesterday morning, before the party. Fortunately, I had a contingency plan for that too. I pressed my intercom. Send in Mr. Roberts, please. My head of PR entered, carrying a press release. Everything's ready, Mrs. Kingston. We can announce the wedding's cancellation, citing a mutual decision to pursue different paths. All major publications will run it tomorrow. And the video? I asked. Prepare for the trust fund meeting next week. Though after last night's display, we might not need it. Michael looked between us. Video? I nodded to Mr. Roberts, who pulled up a recording on the office's main screen. There was Melissa at various society events, mocking my middle-class lifestyle, bragging about how she accessed the family fortune, even discussing plans to push me into retirement once she had control. She never knew about my security team, I explained. They've been documenting everything for months. I think I'm going to be sick. Michael stood, pacing. All this time, but wait, what about her designer friend? The wedding dress. I pulled up another file on my tablet. No such friend exists. The dress she wanted belongs to a major fashion house. They confirmed she's been telling them you'd pay for it directly. Classic confidence scheme, Mr. Roberts added. She's pulled similar stunts before, just on a smaller scale. Michael stopped pacing. Mom, why didn't you tell me all this sooner? About any of it? I stood walking to the window. Because you needed to see it for yourself. If I had revealed everything earlier, you might have always wondered if I'd interfered unnecessarily. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we have to learn firsthand. Like the lesson you taught me about working for what I want. Exactly. I turned back to him. Money is a tool, Michael, not a personality trait. Your grandfather taught me that, and I've tried to teach you the same. The wine on your dress last night, he managed a small smile. You didn't even flinch. Designer clothes can be replaced. Character cannot. Mr. Roberts cleared his throat. Mrs. Kingston, we should discuss the timeline for the announcements. Of course. I handed Michael one final document. This is the complete file on the Thompson family's financial situation. Read it. Understand it. Consider it your first lesson in what we really do here. He took the file, then suddenly hugged me tight. Thank you, Mom, for everything, the lessons, the protection, even the summer jobs. Especially the summer jobs, I smiled. Now how about lunch? There's a hot dog stand outside your first office building that I've always wanted to try. Michael laughed, his first real laugh since last night. The CEO of Kingston International Holdings wants street hot dogs. The CEO of Kingston International Holdings wants to have lunch with her son, I corrected. The hot dogs are just a bonus. As we left the office, my assistant handed me another report, the Thompson family's latest desperate attempt to save their company. I tucked it away for later. Right now, my priority was helping my son heal and learn from this experience. Because sometimes the most valuable things in life aren't written in trust fund documents or measured in designer dress prices. Sometimes they're found in moments like this, walking with your child, sharing simple food, and knowing that while money can buy many things, it can't buy the wisdom to use it well. 1 week later, I sat in my conference room, watching Melissa's face as my lawyers played the video evidence of her schemes. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide her growing pallor as her own words echoed through the room. As you can see, my lead attorney concluded, any legal action would be ill-advised. Mrs. Kingston has been quite generous in offering to handle the wedding cancellation announcements discreetly. Melissa's father, once proud and pompous, seemed to have aged years and days. This is all a misunderstanding, he stammered. Melissa was just caught, I finished quietly, just like your company was caught using fraudulent collateral. Please, Melissa finally spoke, her voice lacking its usual arrogance. You don't understand. Our family name is worth exactly what you've made it worth. I opened a folder. However, I'm prepared to offer you a choice. Both Thompsons leaned forward eagerly. Option 1. You sign these papers agreeing to never contact my family again, and I'll arrange refinancing for your company with legitimate terms and oversight. And Option 2, Mr. Thompson asked. I let the fraud charges proceed and your family name becomes famous for something entirely different. Melissa's hands shook as she reached for the papers. You planned this all along, didn't you? Even that white dress at the party. I planned to protect my son. I corrected. The dress was just a bonus. Sometimes the best lessons leave a stain. After they left, Michael entered the conference room. He'd insisted on watching from the adjacent office. That was intense. That was business. I started gathering the documents. Sometimes kindness and consequences can coexist. The refinancing offer was kind, he agreed. After everything they did. Revenge is expensive, I said, quoting my father. Good business is priceless. We walked to the elevator together, and I noticed how differently he carried himself now, more aware, more focused. Mom, he said as we descended, I'm ready to learn, really learn, about all of this. I smiled. Good. Because that trust fund has one more condition we haven't discussed. What's that? You'll need to earn your way into the company, starting from entry level, just like I did. He grinned. Let me guess, no special treatment. Well, I adjusted my jacket. Maybe we'll skip the hot dog cart lunch breaks. Once was enough. We both laughed, and I felt the last tension from the past weeks dissolve. My son had learned valuable lessons about money, love, and character, lessons that would serve him better than any trust fund. As we reached the lobby, my phone buzzed with news. The Thompson refinancing was already being processed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's showing others a better way forward, even if they don't deserve it. Ready for your first real lesson? I asked Michael. Always, he replied. Just promise me one thing. What's that? No more white dresses at business meetings. I linked my arm through his. Deal. Now, let's go build something worthy of that trust fund you're going to earn. Because in the end, it was never about the money. It was about the wisdom to use it well, the strength to stand firm, and the courage to wear white to a party where you know someone might throw wine. I stood outside the gleaming Fashion Week tent, watching through the glass as security returned to their posts after escorting me out. Inside, Victoria was apologizing to her influential front-row guests about the unfortunate disruption caused by her hopelessly suburban mother-in-law. Mrs. Chen, my assistant Lisa, appeared at my elbow. The board is waiting for your decision about Victoria's brand. Tell them I'll have my final answer after tomorrow's show, I said, adjusting my embarrassingly off-brand channel suit, the same one Victoria had once dismissed as obviously fake despite its custom tailoring. She really has no idea, does she? Lisa washed Victoria Airkiss fashion editors who'd only shown up because of pressure from Chen Global Luxury. That everything she has came from you? Not just the startup capital from her husband's trust fund, which I controlled, but also the mysterious investment from MS Chen, the reclusive fashion mogul who'd taken an inexplicable interest in her brand. The same MS Chen who was scheduled to make a rare public appearance at tomorrow's show. Mother? My son James appeared, looking uncomfortable in his designer suit. I'm so sorry about Victoria. She's just stressed about tomorrow. About meeting MS Chen? I smiled slightly. Yes, I imagine she is. She's worked so hard, he said loyally. This international distribution deal would mean everything to her. Through the glass, I watched Victoria demonstrate her authentic luxury vision to a group of journalists. The same vision that had transformed my son's inheritance into a collection of overpriced, poorly made clothes with enormous logos. Her numbers for the Asian market projection, Lisa began, are completely fabricated, I finished, just like her claims about sustainable manufacturing. My phone buzzed, the Chen Global Board requesting my presence at their emergency meeting. Victoria's Fashion Week show wasn't just about impressing critics. It was her final chance to prove her brand deserved international backing. She thinks the deal is guaranteed, James said worriedly. She's already started planning the expansion. Has she? I watched Victoria dismiss a young designer who dared to question her production methods. How interesting. Inside the tent, Victoria was holding court about her journey to luxury. The same journey that had started with her discovering James had a trust fund and ended with her spending millions of my investment on influencer parties instead of quality control. The preview numbers are concerning, Lisa reported as we walked to my car. The craftsmanship issues we flagged are worse than expected. I checked my phone, where photos of unraveling seams and peeling logos were flooding our quality control chat. The Asian market will never accept this level of work, Lisa confirmed. Not at these prices. I thought of the original business proposal that had caught my attention, a sustainable, ethically produced fashion line celebrating craftsmanship and heritage. Somewhere between funding and execution, Victoria had transformed it into yet another fast fashion brand masquerading as luxury. Mrs. Chen, the head of our Asian distribution network, was calling about tomorrow's announcement. Let's see how the show goes, I said, watching Victoria pose for photos in a dress that cost $50 to make and was priced at $5,000. I think tomorrow will be very educational. Back in my office, Lisa laid out the latest reports. She's violated every principle of the original investment agreement: sustainability, ethical labor, quality standards. But she's got excellent Instagram numbers, I noted dryly, scrolling through her inflated engagement metrics. My phone buzzed again. The Fashion Week organizers confirming tomorrow's schedule. Victoria had insisted on closing the week, certain that MS Chen's anticipated appearance would guarantee headlines. Your outfit for tomorrow? Lisa asked. Something appropriately suburban. I smiled, thinking of Victoria's horror at my embarrassing preference for understated elegance over obvious branding. Through my office windows, I could see the Fashion Week tents lighting up as evening approached. Victoria was still inside, probably rehearsing tomorrow's speech about her authentic luxury vision. The board wants to know if we should prepare the rejection statement. Lisa checked her tablet. Not yet, I said, watching young influencers pose with Victoria's overpriced bags. Let's see if tomorrow's show teaches her anything about real value. My phone lit up with a text from James. Victoria's freaking out about meeting MS Chen. Says everything depends on making the right impression. If only she put this much effort into actual quality control instead of cultivating the right social media image. The real numbers? Lisa handed me the final analysis. Show what we suspected, I confirmed, noting how Victoria's projected sales relied entirely on inflated prices and influencer marketing. No sustainability, no craftsmanship, no authentic luxury, just expensive fast fashion with big logos. Exactly what you started Chen Global to fight against, Lisa noted. I built my company on principles Victoria would consider hopelessly old-fashioned. Quality over quantity, craftsmanship over branding, authentic luxury over social media hype. The same principles she dismissed as too suburban for her vision. My phone buzzed one final time, the Chen Global Board's last appeal. Are you sure about tomorrow? Through my window, I could see Victoria leaving the tent, already planning how to impress the mysterious MS Chen. The same MS Chen she'd had security removed from her show for looking too suburban. Yes, I replied, thinking of all the lessons tomorrow would bring. I'm quite sure. Sometimes the most expensive education comes from learning what real value means, and sometimes the most important lessons about luxury come from the people you consider too suburban to understand it. Lisa. I call as she prepared to leave. Make sure my embarrassingly off-brand suit is ready for tomorrow. The one Victoria said was obviously fake. That's the one. I smiled, imagining tomorrow's revelations. I think it's perfect for meeting the brand's owner, don't you? The morning of Victoria's Fashion Week show dawned with controlled chaos. From my private viewing room above the tent, I watched her direct staff with a kind of attention to detail that had never made it into her actual clothing production. Everything must be perfect for MS Chen, she commanded, adjusting a model's logo belt. This is our moment to prove we're real luxury. Lisa appeared at my elbow with the latest quality reports. 3 dresses have already split their seams during rehearsal. But the logos are perfectly centered, I noted dryly, watching Victoria fuss over brand placement, priorities. My phone buzzed with updates from our Asian market team, counterfeiters already replicating her designs. Hard to tell fakes from originals due to similar quality issues. The irony wasn't lost on me. Victoria had spent millions creating luxury pieces that were functionally identical to their knockoffs. Mother. James found me in my viewing room. Victoria's looking for MS Chen. Apparently, they're supposed to meet before the show. Are they? I studied a rack of Victoria's clothes, each piece showcasing exactly what was wrong with modern luxury. All surface, no substance. She's nervous, James confided. Says everything depends on impressing Chen Global today. Through the glass, I watched Victoria practice her speech about her authentic luxury vision, while wearing a dress that would fall apart after 3 washes. The press is arriving, Lisa reported. They're all here because Chen Global demanded it, I finished, not because they believe in the brand. Victoria had spent more on influencer marketing than quality control, more on logo design than craftsmanship. Now she was about to learn the true cost of those choices. Mrs. Chen, the head of our Asian distribution, called again. The board needs your final decision before the show starts. I watched Victoria dismiss a seamstress's concerns about structural issues in the finale dress. Let's see how she handles the next hour. The tent filled with fashion editors, influencers, and luxury buyers, all required to attend by their Chen Global advertising contracts. Victoria fluttered between them, dropping hints about MS Chen's imminent arrival. The anticipated guest will be here soon, she'd assured everyone. Then you'll all understand why we're the future of luxury. Speaking of guests, James frowned. Why aren't you sitting in the front row? Victoria reserved a seat for family. Did she? I smiled, remembering yesterday's escort out. How thoughtful. The lights dimmed for the show's start. Victoria grabbed the microphone for her opening speech, radiant in her confidence that MS Chen's appearance would validate everything. Today marks a new chapter in luxury, she began. When MS Chen arrives. MS Chen is already here, I said quietly, standing in my viewing room. Has been all along. Below, Victoria continued. Our partnership with Chen Global proves that true luxury is about more than logos. I murmured, nodding to Lisa. Let's see if she really believes that. The first model walked out, wearing a dress that retailed for $3,000 but cost less than $100 to make. The influencers raised their phones, dutifully capturing content they were paid to create. Everything's perfect, Victoria whispered to James in the front row. Now we just need MS Chen to arrive. Lisa handed me my tablet, displaying a single message, proceed. I thought of Victoria's original pitch, sustainable, ethical, authentic. Then I looked at what she actually created. Fast fashion masquerading as luxury, all marketing and no substance. Mother. James appeared in my viewing room again. Victoria's getting worried. MS Chen was supposed to be here by now. Was she? I stood straightening my embarrassingly suburban suit. How interesting. The show reached its halfway point. Victoria was visibly panicking, her perfect facade cracking as she checked her phone repeatedly for news of MS Chen's arrival. Perhaps, I told James gently, it's time for MS Chen to make her appearance. His eyes widened as understanding dawned. You're the embarrassingly suburban investor your wife had security removed yesterday? I smiled. Yes. Below, Victoria was desperately trying to maintain control as a seam split visibly on one of her dresses. The influencers' cameras caught everything, their paid enthusiasm turning to genuine interest in the unfolding drama. It's time, I told Lisa, heading for the stairs. Mother. James caught my arm. Be gentle. Gentler than having security remove her mother-in-law from a show? I asked quietly, or gentler than wasting her husband's inheritance on fake luxury? Victoria was near tears when I reached the main floor, still searching the crowd for MS Chen. Around her, fashion editors were already drafting scathing reviews of her poor quality control. Victoria, I called softly. She turned, then froze in horror as Lisa handed me the tablet displaying Chen Global's logo. No, she whispered. Yes, I confirmed. Though I'm surprised you want me here, given yesterday's security escort. The room fell silent as understanding rippled through the crowd. Victoria's perfectly curated world was about to meet reality, and reality was wearing a suburban channel suit. But you're just, she stammered. The owner of Chen Global Luxury, I suggested. The investor you've been desperate to impress. The one whose security removed her yesterday for not looking expensive enough. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from our most expensive mistakes. And Victoria was about to learn just how expensive her mistakes had been. Shall we discuss your authentic luxury vision? I asked quietly. Or should we start with your quality control issues? The aftermath of Victoria's Fashion Week revelation unfolded like a couture dress being carefully unpicked. In her private office behind the runway, she sat perfectly still, her designer outfit suddenly feeling as fake as her brand's luxury claims. The international distribution deal, she whispered, is contingent on meeting Chen Global's quality standards. I finished, laying out photos of split seams and peeling logos. Standards you've consistently ignored in favor of marketing. I thought luxury was about image, she managed, about exclusivity. Luxury, I corrected gently, is about value. Real value, not perceived. Something you might have learned if you'd ever asked about my little suburban business instead of dismissing it. James stood quietly in a corner, watching his wife's carefully constructed world realign itself. Your original proposal, I continued, promised sustainable manufacturing, ethical labor practices, authentic craftsmanship. Instead, you gave us fast fashion with inflated prices and oversized logos. The influencers said. Influencers don't build lasting luxury brands, I interrupted. Craftspeople do. Like Maria, the seamstress you fired for questioning your quality control. Victoria flinched, remembering how she dismissed the veteran craftswoman's concerns. However, I pulled out a new contract. Chen Global is willing to offer you one last opportunity. Her head snapped up, hope warring with humiliation. 3 months, I explained. Complete reboot. You'll work alongside our craftspeople, learn every aspect of authentic luxury production. No shortcuts, no influencer campaigns, no logos. But my brand needs to be more than just your name in an expensive font, I finished. It needs to be something worth wearing. Outside, we could hear the fashion press having a field day with the story. Fast fashion fraudster faced by real luxury legend. Victoria's carefully curated social media was exploding with the news. Why did you invest in me? She asked finally. If you knew I was doing it wrong. Because I saw potential, I said simply. In your original vision, before you got distracted by influencer metrics and logo size. James stepped forward, taking his wife's hand. Take the offer, Vic. Learn from Mom what I should have taught you about real value. 6 months later, Victoria stood in Chen Global's main atelier, watching master craftspeople work on her new collection. Her perfectly manicured hands were now slightly callous from learning traditional techniques. A silk supplier from Kyoto called, she told me, checking her production notes rather than her Instagram. They're willing to work with us if we meet their ethical standards. And will we? We'll exceed them, she said firmly. I've been studying their traditional methods, if we combine them with modern sustainable practices. I smiled, remembering the woman who once thought luxury meant just adding zeros to the price tag. Your new collection samples, Lisa announced, bringing in a rack of clothes that looked deceptively simple until you noticed the exquisite craftsmanship. No logos? I teased gently. The quality speaks for itself, Victoria replied, running her fingers over a perfectly executed seam. Though I never understood that when I was just trying to look expensive. Her new Fashion Week show was a quiet affair. No influencers, no huge logos, no artificial hype. Just impeccably made clothes that whispered quality instead of shouting status. The Asian market distribution deal is approved, I told her after the show. They recognize authentic luxury when they see it. Victoria smoothed down her suburban suit, one she'd made herself during her retraining. I owe you an apology, many apologies. You owe yourself one too, I suggested, for thinking you needed to be something else to have value. The fashion press called her transformation the return to real luxury. Her social media followers dropped, but her waiting list for bespoke pieces grew. Real customers replaced paid influencers, craftsmanship replaced marketing budgets. Ready for the board meeting? I asked one morning, finding her reviewing quality control reports. She straightened her jacket, beautifully made, quietly elegant, completely logo-free. Ready to show them what real luxury means. Sometimes the most valuable transformations come from our most humbling moments, and sometimes real luxury is found not in how expensive something looks, but in how genuine it is. By the way, I told her as we headed to the meeting, security called. They wanted to confirm they should never remove anyone from our shows again. Victoria smiled, finally understanding that true value rarely needs to announce itself. No, she agreed. You never know who might be wearing Suburban Channel. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't in proving someone wrong, but in teaching them how to be authentically right. I sat in my home office, reviewing the merger proposal between Tech Vision Industries and Global Dynamics while my daughter-in-law's voice drifted up from the garden party below. Of that little consulting thing. Andrea's laugh tinkled like expensive crystal. It's just something to keep her busy. You know how these empty nesters get. Trust me, for your corporate needs, you want someone more substantial. Through my window, I could see her holding court among Manhattan's elite, hosting another of her networking brunches at my son Michael's house. The same house I'd helped him buy with my little consulting thing money. My phone buzzed, the FTC chairman calling for the 3rd time today. Patricia, he sounded stressed. Have you reviewed the Tech Vision merger docs? Just finishing now, I replied, watching Andrea gesture dismissively toward my office while chatting with Tech Vision's VP of Operations. It's interesting. That's one word for it. The preliminary review team found some concerning patterns. We need your final recommendation by Monday. I made a note in the margins of page 394. where TechVision's creative accounting couldn't quite hide their market manipulation strategy. I'll have my complete analysis ready for the board meeting. Thank you, and Patricia. The White House is watching this one closely. Of course they were. The TechVision Global Dynamics merger would create the largest tech conglomerate in history. If approved, it would make Andrea, their head of strategic partnerships, one of the most powerful executives in the industry. And if denied, well, my daughter-in-law might finally learn why serious players in corporate America take my little consulting business very seriously indeed. Mom, Michael knocked on my office door. Are you joining us for brunch? Just finishing some work, honey. I closed the merger file as he entered. My brilliant, kind-hearted son, who'd somehow married a woman who measured everyone's worth either social media following and country club memberships. Andrea's telling everyone about the merger, he said proudly. It's going to be huge for her career. So I've heard. Through my window, I watched Andrea air-kiss the wife of Global Dynamics CEO. Has she mentioned any concerns about regulatory approval? Michael shrugged. She says it's just a formality. Apparently, they've got some top-tier consulting firm handling all that boring government stuff. I thought of the 3 minor violations I'd already flagged in the morning's review. Interesting approach. You should come down, he urged. Andrea's boss is here. Maybe you could network a bit, drum up some business for your consulting. Before I could respond, Andrea's voice carried up again. Oh, my mother-in-law. She means well, but her business is more boutique. Charming really, but not quite up to handling significant corporate matters. Michael winced. She's just being herself. I finished. Don't worry about it. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from my colleague at the Justice Department. Antitrust implications worse than expected. Need your insights before we proceed. Mom. Michael was watching me carefully. Why are you smiling like that? Just thinking about Monday's meeting. The merger review board thing. Andrea mentioned that was happening. She's not worried though. Says they got all the right people in their corner. I thought of the right people Andrea had cultivated. The social media influencers, the society columnists, the cocktail party power brokers. None of whom had any actual say in whether her merger lived or died. Michael, I said carefully, has Andrea ever actually asked what kind of consulting I do? She assumes it's like career coaching or something. He looked uncertain. You've never really talked about it. No, I agreed. I haven't. Below, Andrea was holding forth about the merger's brilliance. It's really about market synergy, she explained to her rapt audience. Once those tedious regulatory hurdles are cleared. My phone buzzed again. The White House Chief of Staff this time. I sent it to voicemail. Honey, I told Michael, why did you go enjoy the party? I need to finish this review. At least come down for a minute. Andrea's boss really knows his stuff about business. Maybe you could learn something useful. I glanced at the post-it note on my monitor, reminding me of Monday's schedule. 9:00 a.m., final merger review. 10:00 a.m., board vote. 11:00 a.m., White House briefing. 12:00 p.m., press conference. I'm sure I could, I said mildly. After Michael left, I returned to page 394, where TechVision's clever accountants had almost managed to hide the market manipulation strategy. Almost, but not quite. Not from someone who'd spent 30 years building one of the most respected independent consulting firms in regulatory compliance. My phone buzzed yet again. The SEC this time. Through the window, I heard Andrea telling someone, my mother-in-law. Oh, she does some sort of small business consulting. Very basic stuff, nothing like what we deal with. I opened my laptop and began typing. Preliminary FINDINGSRE. TTCV and global DYNAMICS MERG PAR. Attention. Federal Trade Commission Board. From Patricia Chen, Chairperson, Merger Review Board. Basic stuff indeed, I murmured, listing the first of several critical violations that Andrea's top-tier consulting firm had somehow missed. The garden party continued below, Manhattan's elite hanging on Andrea's every word about the merger that would make her career. None of them knowing that up in my quaint home office, I was composing the document that would determine whether that merger lived or died. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from my senior partner. Pat, should we tell her? I watched Andrea dismiss another question about my business with a wave of her champagne glass. Not yet. I texted back. Monday will be soon enough. Sometimes the best lessons come from discovering just how wrong our assumptions can be, and sometimes the smallest offices contain the biggest surprises. I returned to my review, smiling slightly as Andrea's voice drifted up once more. Oh, that little home office, it's just her hobby really, nothing serious. Serious enough to determine the fate of your $4.8 billion merger, dear daughter-in-law. Serious enough indeed. My phone buzzed with another message from the FTC chairman. Final decision Monday? Yes, I replied, watching Andrea hold court below. I think Monday will be very educational for everyone involved. Sunday evening, the night before the merger review, Andrea hosted a small dinner for 20 of her closest corporate allies. From my office, I could hear them discussing tomorrow's formality over $500 bottles of wine. The regulatory review is just a rubber stamp, Andrea assured her guests. Our consultants have guaranteed it. I added another note to my analysis. Consultants' failure to identify critical market concentration issues in Section 7A. My phone lit up with a text from the SEC commissioner. Saw your preliminary findings. This is bigger than we thought. Below, Andrea's voice carried up. Once this merger goes through, we'll control 67% of the market. Total digital dominance. I highlighted that percentage in my report. The Sherman Antitrust Act had something to say about that level of market concentration, something Andrea's expensive consultants had apparently forgotten. Mom? Michael appeared in my doorway. Andrea's boss wants to meet you. Says he's curious about your little business. I closed my laptop. That should be interesting. Downstairs, CEO Richard Hammond held court in my living room, Andrea hovering nervously nearby. Ah, the mysterious mother-in-law. Andrea tells me you do some sort of small business consulting. Something like that, I smiled, accepting a glass of their overpriced wine. You should see her home office, Andrea jumped in. It's adorable, like a little corporate playhouse. Where I review some interesting documents, I added mildly, mergers and acquisitions, regulatory compliance, that sort of thing. Hammond's smile flickered slightly. Regulatory compliance, that must be fascinating. Oh, it is. For instance, I just reviewed a fascinating merger proposal. The companies involved somehow missed several Section 7 violations. Amateur mistakes, really, the kind my little business would have caught immediately. Andrea laughed nervously. Mother, I'm sure Mr. Hammond doesn't want to discuss boring regulatory details. Actually, Hammond set down his wine. Perhaps we should. Andrea, someone called from the dining room. Tell everyone about tomorrow's merger announcement. She rushed off, leaving me with an increasingly uncomfortable CEO. Mrs. Chen, Hammond said quietly, exactly what kind of consulting do you do? The kind that usually prevents companies from making fatal mistakes in their merger proposals, I replied. But I'm sure your top-tier consultants have everything under control. His face paled slightly. Perhaps we should discuss this in private. Tomorrow, I smiled. At the review board meeting. Review board, his eyes widened with sudden recognition. You're not, you can't be. Patricia Chen, I extended my hand. Chairperson of the FTC Merger Review Board. But please don't let me interrupt the celebration. He grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. Mrs. Chen, if there are any issues with our proposal, then they should have been caught by your consultants, I finished. The ones my daughter-in-law assured you were far more qualified than my little business. The color drained from his face. We can refile, amend the proposal. Tomorrow is the final review, I reminded him. But I'm sure it's just a formality, right? That's what Andrea's been telling everyone. Back in my office, I finished my analysis while the party continued below. My phone buzzed with a message from my senior partner. White House is very interested in your findings on market manipulation. Andrea's voice drifted up. By this time tomorrow, we'll be the biggest tech company in history. I added my final recommendation to the report just as Michael appeared again. Mom, why does Andrea's boss look like he's seen a ghost? Perhaps he's nervous about tomorrow's merger review. But Andrea said it's just a formality. Did she? I saved my report. How interesting. The party wound down around midnight. As the guests departed, I heard Hammond telling Andrea, we need to talk. First thing tomorrow. Before the review board meeting. But it's just a rubber stamp. Her voice trailed off as he whispered something urgent in her ear. I was preparing for bed when Andrea knocked on my door, her perfect composure slightly cracked. "Mother," her voice wavered, "Mr. Hammond said something very strange about you and tomorrow's review board." "Did he?" "He said. But it can't be true. He said you're the chairperson." "Of the FTC merger review board?" "Yes." She sank onto my bed, her designer dress crumpling. But your little consulting business is one of the most respected regulatory compliance firms in Washington," I finished. "The boring government stuff you didn't think was worth discussing." "The merger," she whispered. "All our work will be evaluated fairly," I assured her, "based solely on its legal merits. Though I must say your consultants missed some rather serious issues." "Why didn't you tell me?" "You never asked," I said simply. "You were too busy explaining to everyone how small-time and unimportant my work was." She stared at me, years of dismissive comments and condescending introductions playing across her face. Is there time to fix it?" "The review is at 9 a.m. I checked my watch. Though I'm sure your top-tier consultants have everything under control." She fled to her room, phone already pressed to her ear, presumably calling those same consultants who had guaranteed regulatory approval. Sometimes the most expensive lessons are the ones we learn about our own assumptions, and sometimes the smallest businesses cast the longest shadows in the corridors of power. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. Tomorrow would be an educational day for everyone involved, especially my daughter-in-law. Monday morning, 8:45 a.m. The FTC boardroom filled with executives, lawyers, and the press. Andrea sat with her team, her usual confident smile replaced by a look of barely concealed panic. Behind her, Hammond kept checking his phone, likely waiting for last-minute advice from their consultants. At precisely 9 a.m., I entered through the chairman's door, taking my seat at the head of the review board. The room fell silent as recognition dawned on various faces. That's your mother-in-law," someone whispered to Andrea, the small-time consultant. Another added, not quite quietly enough. I opened the merger proposal, noting how Andrea seemed to shrink in her designer's suit. "Shall we begin?" What followed was a methodical dissection of every flaw their expensive consultants had missed. Market concentration violations, antitrust issues, evidence of planned price manipulation, all the things my little business specialized in catching. But our market analysis, Hammond tried to interrupt, shows a post-merger control of 67% market share, I finished, as my daughter-in-law proudly announced at last night's dinner party. Andrea looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. By 10 a.m., the verdict was clear. The merger, as proposed, could not be approved. The room erupted in chaos as reporters rushed to file their stories. However, I continued once order was restored. The board is willing to consider an amended proposal, one that addresses these violations and ensures market competition. "How long would that take?" Hammond asked desperately. "My firm usually needs 3 months to properly restructure such proposals," I said mildly, "though I'm sure your top-tier consultants can work faster." Andrea finally met my eyes, years of dismissive comments hanging between us. After the room cleared, she remained behind, staring at the stacks of annotated documents, hundreds of pages of detailed analysis from my hobby business. "Why didn't you warn me?" she whispered. "Would you have listened? I gathered my papers. Or would you have dismissed it as more basic stuff from your mother-in-law's quaint little office?" "I've been so focused on appearances," I suggested, "on impressing people with the right labels, the right connections, the right addresses." She nodded miserably. "The merger can still happen," I told her, "but it needs to be done right, not with shortcuts and social connections, but with proper analysis and compliance." "Will you?" She hesitated. "Would your firm consider helping?" I smiled. "That's what small businesses are for, aren't they? Helping the big players avoid costly mistakes." Later that evening, I found Andrea in my home office, studying the diplomas and awards I'd never bothered to display prominently. "Presidential Advisory Committee," she read. "Congressional testimony, White House task force." "All for my little consulting thing," I confirmed. She turned, tears in her designer mascara. "I've been terrible to you." "You've been unobservant," I corrected. "Too busy looking for importance in all the wrong places." "Can you teach me?" she asked suddenly. "Not just about the merger, but about all of it?" how to see what really matters. I considered her request. It would mean starting at the bottom, learning the basics, no shortcuts. "I'm ready," she said, and for the first time, I believed her. 6 months later, the merger was approved under a completely restructured proposal. Andrea had spent those months working alongside my team, learning what real corporate expertise looked like. She traded her social lunch meetings for regulatory study sessions, her networking parties for actual networking. "Congratulations," I told her after the final approval. "You've learned the most important lesson in business. That appearances don't matter. That they matter far less than substance." She smiled, gesturing to my home office. "I can't believe I once called this place a corporate playhouse." Well, I checked my phone, where the White House Chief of Staff was calling again. Sometimes the best plays happen on the smallest stages. The merger made headlines, but not for its size or glamour. Instead, it was praised as a model of regulatory compliance and fair market practice. Andrea's social media followers dropped as her professional reputation soared. "Ready for your first solo consultation?" I asked her one morning. She straightened her now modest suit. "Are you sure I'm qualified?" "You've learned the most important qualification," I assured her. "You've learned to look past the surface." Sometimes the biggest transformations come from the smallest revelations, and sometimes the best revenge isn't in proving someone wrong, but in teaching them how to be right. "Come on," I told my daughter-in-law. "We have some small-time consulting to do." I stood on the sidewalk outside Maison Monroe, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Manhattan's elite mingled at my sister-in-law's restaurant opening. The channel-clad hostess who had just escorted me out was now apologizing profusely to Monica, who had spotted me trying to enter her establishment. "Mrs. Chen." Jacob, my financial advisor, pulled up in his Tesla. I saw what happened. "Should I remind Mrs. Monroe who actually owns this building?" "Not yet," I said, sliding into the passenger seat. "Let's see how she handles tonight's special guest first." That guest would be MG Chen, my investment persona, supposedly arriving in an hour to inspect the restaurant before releasing the final funding installment. Monica had never connected her husband's budget sister to the mysterious investor who'd backed her dream project. "Her books are a mess," Jacob reported as we drove to my office to change. "She spent 3 times the approved budget on decorations alone. The chef's menu is solid, but she's insisted on adding gold leaf to everything." I sighed, thinking of the original business proposal that had caught my interest, a farm-to-table concept celebrating local immigrants' culinary heritage. Somewhere between approval and execution, Monica had transformed it into yet another overpriced temple to excess. "The staff seems miserable," I noted, having quietly observed the preparations all week, especially the sous chef she inherited from their family's original restaurant. "Maria? She's brilliant, but Mrs. Monroe says her ethnic dishes don't fit the new upscale image." The irony was rich. Monica had married my brother James for his family's respected restaurant name, only to discover the Monroe fortune wasn't what she'd imagined. Now she was systematically dismantling everything that had made their original family restaurant successful, chasing some glossy magazine version of luxury. In my office overlooking Central Park, I changed into the outfit Monica would consider appropriate, a Valentino dress and Louboutins I kept for investor meetings, the same labels she'd mocked as obvious fakes when I'd worn them to her wedding. The latest numbers. Jacob handed me a tablet as we headed back downtown. "She's running at 40% over budget, mainly on cosmetic upgrades." The kitchen equipment fund was reallocated to import Italian marble for the bar. "Which explains why Maria's still using the old ovens," I muttered. The sous chef had practically raised my brother and me, feeding us authentic Chinese dishes in the family restaurant's kitchen after our parents died. Now Monica had relegated her to prep work, claiming her cooking was too ethnic for the new concept. The restaurant's entrance was now crowded with photographers. Monica had promised exclusive access to MG Chen's first public appearance. She'd built quite a mythology around her mysterious backer, hinting at old money and international connections. Ready to disappoint her? Jacob grinned, adjusting his tie. "Oh, I don't think I'll disappoint her at all," I smiled. "I think I'm going to exceed her expectations spectacularly." We entered through the VIP door, bypassing the hostess who'd removed me earlier. Monica rushed over, champagne in hand, then froze when she recognized me. "What are you? How did you get in?" "Security." Mrs. Monroe, Jacob intervened smoothly. May I present MJ Chen, majority shareholder of Maison Monroe and owner of this building. The champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on her precious imported marble. Around us, conversations hushed as Manhattan's elite turned to watch the drama unfold. This is a joke, Monica laughed nervously. MJ Chen is standing right here. I finished pulling out my investor ID. Though an hour ago, you had me removed for looking too budget for your establishment. But you're just James's sister. The one who works in finance or whatever. Private equity, actually. Specifically, restaurant investment. I accepted a fresh champagne from a wide-eyed server. Shall we discuss your creative reallocation of the kitchen equipment fund? Or your interesting interpretation of our original concept? The color drained from her perfectly bronzed face. I can explain. Oh, I hope so. I gestured to Jacob. Shall we audit the books now, or would you prefer to wait until after your guests leave? Please, she whispered, not here. You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing you? I sipped my champagne. Like you embarrassed Maria by rejecting her award-winning dishes, or like you embarrassed the local farmers we contracted by canceling their orders in favor of overpriced imports. Around us, the influential crowd openly stared. Monica lived for their approval, having built her entire persona on being their arbiter of taste and class. The kitchen, she managed. We should talk in the kitchen. We found Maria there, expertly managing the chaos of opening night despite her outdated equipment. Her eyes widened when she saw me, then crinkled with understanding. Ah, she smiled. So the little girl I taught to make dumplings grew up to own restaurants. Just this one, Auntie Maria. I hugged her, ignoring Monica's horrified expression at such informal behavior. Though I'm thinking it needs some management changes. You can't? Monica protested. The Monroe name belongs to James, who signed off on my investment specifically because he trusted me to protect his family's legacy. I turned to Maria. How would you like to be executive chef? With a budget for proper equipment and full creative control. You let me cook real food. Maria's eyes shone. Not just overpriced basics with gold leaf. Gold leaf won't fill hearts or stomachs, I said in Mandarin, repeating her old wisdom back to her. Real luxury is in the love we put into our work. This is ridiculous, Monica snapped. You can't just change everything. I'm the face of this restaurant. A face that just banned its owner for not looking expensive enough. Jacob noted dryly. Interesting marketing strategy. I picked up a sample of Monica's new menu with its $400 gold-leafed pasta and $200 designer cocktails. You have two choices. Either we return to the original concept, authentic, accessible, respectful of our culinary heritage, or I pull my investment and sell this building to the developers who've been courting me. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I met her gaze steadily. You married into the Monroe family thinking you found a shortcut to success. But real value isn't in gold leaf or marble bars. It's in the authenticity my brother and I learned in this kitchen, watching Maria cook with love and wisdom. The dinner service was starting. Through the kitchen doors, we could hear the guests growing restless. Your choice, Monica. I checked my watch. Should I announce the closure now, or would you like to discuss a new direction? Sometimes the most expensive lessons come free, served with a side of humble pie. And sometimes the best revenge isn't in grand revelations, but in quiet course corrections that restore things to their proper order. Maria, I called as Monica stood speechless. What do you say we show these people what real luxury tastes like? The old chef smiled, already reaching for her secret spice blend. About time someone remembered what matters most is not how food looks on Instagram, but how it feels in the heart. The transformation of Maison Monroe began that very night. While Monica retreated to her office to process, I asked Jacob to distribute new menus, Maria's original concept, printed on the back of Monica's gold foil versions. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the crowd. Tonight you'll be among the first to experience something truly exclusive, authenticity. The wealthy diners watched, intrigued, as Maria's staff wheeled out dim sum carts between the imported Italian marble tables. The $400 gold leaf pasta was replaced by her legendary hand-pulled noodles, each bowl telling a story of tradition and craft. This is, a prominent food critic paused, chopsticks halfway to his mouth, extraordinary. The depth of flavor, the technique. Who is your chef? The same chef who's been feeding the Monroe family for 30 years. I smiled, watching Maria work her magic in the now open kitchen. Though until today she was deemed too ethnic for our modern image. Word spread quickly through Manhattan's restaurant scene. By midnight, social media was buzzing, not with photos of gold leaf garnishes, but with videos of Maria demonstrating the art of noodle pulling. The city's top chefs, many of whom had trained under her years ago, began arriving after their own services ended. "You've ruined everything." Monica emerged from her office, mascara slightly smeared. This was supposed to be sophisticated, exclusive. "Look around," I gestured to the packed dining room, where CEOs and celebrities happily ate with their hands, following Maria's instructions on how to properly wrap Peking duck. "When was the last time you saw Manhattan's elite looking this genuinely happy?" The restaurant's original investors were particularly pleased. They'd backed Monica based on her promise of exclusive luxury, but were now watching their investment transform into something far more valuable: authenticity. "Your brother called," Jacob murmured, showing me his phone. "He's watching the social media coverage." James had been quietly supportive of my investment, knowing I'd protect his family's culinary heritage. Now he was texting, "Finally, tell Maria to save me some of her red braised pork. And maybe it's time I came back to the kitchen." "We're not a cheap takeout place," Monica protested, overhearing. "James can't jest." "James is a Michelin-starred chef who trained under Maria for 20 years, I interrupted, "before you convinced him that running trendy restaurants was more important than cooking with heart." The night's receipts told their own story. Despite lower prices than Monica's proposed menu, we'd done record business. More importantly, we booked solid reservations for the next month, with top chefs and food critics eager to rediscover Maria's legendary cooking. But the investors, Monica tried one last time, "are thrilled," a voice cut in. Thomas Chang, our biggest backer besides myself, had arrived after hearing about the change. "This is what we wanted, not another soulless expense account menu, but real food with real heritage. And real talent," added his wife, watching Maria train a young line cook in the art of dumpling pleating. "Do you know how long we've been trying to get Maria to open her own place?" Monica sank into a chair, her designer dress crumpling. "I don't understand. Everything I planned, everything I spent, was trying to buy something that only comes from authenticity," I said gently. "Real class isn't about gold leaf and imported marble. It's about respecting tradition, honoring craft, and treating every guest like family." The last customers lingered until 2 a.m., helping Maria fold dumplings and learning the stories behind each dish. Even the kitchen staff stayed, energized by the return to real cooking instead of merely assembling overpriced ingredients. "Tomorrow," I announced to the team, "we renovate. The marble bar becomes a dim sum counter. The VIP room becomes a teaching kitchen, and every piece of equipment Maria needs gets ordered immediately." "But the aesthetic," Monica began. "Will be authentic," I finished. "No more pretending to be something we're not. This restaurant was built on immigrant stories and family traditions. It's time to celebrate that." The staff broke into spontaneous applause. Many had worked for the Monroe family for years, watching sadly as their proud culinary heritage was stripped away in favor of trendy minimalism. "You have a choice, Monica," I told my sister-in-law quietly. "You can either learn from Maria, understand what makes food truly special, or you can step away. But you can't keep pretending that exclusivity is more important than excellence." She stared at the scene before her. Manhattan's elite happily wearing paper bibs to eat clay pot rice, billionaires learning to use chopsticks from patient servers, celebrated chefs taking notes as Maria demonstrated traditional techniques. She looked lost, her carefully constructed world of surface sophistication crumbling. "I don't know how to be part of this." "Start by listening," I suggested. "Not to social media trends or fashion magazines, but to the stories in this kitchen. Learn why James fell in love with cooking here. Understand what really makes food luxury." As if on cue, Maria appeared with a bowl of red braised pork, the same dish she'd made the night our parents died, when 2 scared children found comfort in her kitchen. "Eat," she told Monica firmly. "Then we talk about real value." Sometimes the most exclusive things can't be bought with gold leaf or imported marble. Sometimes they're served in simple bowls, seasoned with history and tradition, and garnished with the wisdom of those who cook from the heart. Tomorrow, I announced to our remaining guests, Madame Monroe becomes simply Monroe's again. Come hungry for food that feeds both body and soul. The appreciative murmur told me we'd made the right choice. Real luxury, after all, isn't about keeping people out. It's about welcoming them in to share something genuine. 6 months later, Monroe's had become Manhattan's most difficult reservation to secure. Not because of artificial exclusivity, but because everyone wanted to be part of its authentic experience. The marble bar had been replaced by a bustling dim sum counter, where CEOs happily queued alongside local residents for Maria's legendary dumplings. The biggest surprise wasn't the restaurant's success, but Monica's transformation. After that first night of reckoning, she'd done something unexpected. She asked Maria to teach her everything, starting from the basics. No shortcuts, Maria had insisted. You learn like family, from the ground up. Now, on a busy Saturday morning, I watched my sister-in-law expertly pleat dumplings alongside Maria, her designer clothes replaced by a standard chef's uniform, her perfectly manicured nails trimmed short for kitchen work. The secret, she was explaining to a group of culinary students, isn't in expensive ingredients. It's in understanding the story behind each dish, the tradition in every technique. James had returned to the kitchen too, working alongside his wife instead of managing trendy restaurants. Together, they were creating new dishes that honored both tradition and innovation. Remember when she wanted to put gold leaf on everything? Jacob mused, reviewing our latest numbers. Now she's teaching authenticity to the same socialites who used to follow her trend setting. The restaurant's Instagram, once full of artificial glamour shots, now showcased behind-the-scenes videos of Maria teaching traditional techniques, Monica learning from veteran staff, and James rediscovering his passion for real cooking. Today's special guest. I checked my calendar. That food critic who called us too ethnic last year, Jacob grinned. He's here to apologize and learn how to make proper hand-pulled noodles. The teaching kitchen, formerly the VIP room, had become a celebrated venue where renowned chefs came to learn from Maria. More importantly, it provided free culinary training to immigrant cooks and underprivileged youth. Miss Chen, a young trainee, approached nervously. Mrs. Monroe says you should come taste the new dish she and Chef Maria created. In the kitchen, Monica and Maria stood over a steaming pot of what looked like traditional red braised pork, but with a subtle twist. We added black vinegar and 5-spice to your mother's recipe, Monica explained, suddenly shy. Maria thought, well, we thought it might honor both traditions. If you approve? I tasted the dish, recognizing the familiar comfort of Maria's cooking enhanced by new depths of flavor. It's perfect, I said, watching my sister-in-law's face light up with genuine pride, not in the dish's presentation or price point, but in its ability to tell a story through food. We're calling it family heritage, James added, wrapping an arm around his wife, because that's what this place is really about. The kitchen staff, once divided between old-timers and Monica's trendy hires, had become a true family. Veterans taught newcomers traditional techniques, while younger cooks introduced fresh perspectives. Every dish that left the kitchen carried both history and hope. Your next investment project called again, Jacob reminded me. That molecular gastronomy concept in Soho. Tell them to come eat here first, I smiled, watching Monica patiently teach a young cook the proper way to season a wok. Some lessons are best learned through example. The evening service began with our new tradition, family meal, where staff and owners ate together, sharing stories and dishes from their various backgrounds. Monica, who once wouldn't be caught dead eating with the help, now led these gatherings, eager to learn from every culture represented in our kitchen. You know, she said quietly as we finished our meal, I used to think luxury meant keeping people out. Now I understand it's about welcoming them in. Through the dining room windows, I could see the line forming, not just wealthy patrons, but students, locals, and food lovers of all backgrounds, drawn by the promise of authenticity. Should we save a VIP table? Jacob teased, remembering Monica's old policies. Every table is VIP, she replied firmly, because every guest is family. Sometimes the most valuable transformations happen not through grand gestures, but through small, daily acts of humility and learning. And sometimes the best revenge isn't in proving someone wrong, but in helping them find a better way to be right. Ready for service? Maria called out. Monica straightened her chef's jacket, no longer concerned with looking expensive or exclusive. Ready, Auntie. Let's feed our family. And as the doors opened and the first guests arrived, I watched my sister-in-law greet them with genuine warmth, finally understanding that true luxury isn't about gold leaf or marble bars. It's about creating something authentic enough to share. I sat in my corner office on the 50th floor of Meridian Tower, reviewing Lauren's latest email requesting a meeting with the CEO. It was her third attempt this week, each message more desperate than the last. Mrs. Chen. My executive assistant David entered with my afternoon tea. Your daughter-in-law is in the lobby again. She's telling reception she has an appointment with the CEO. Which she doesn't, I sighed, watching the security feed on my monitor. Lauren was wearing her finest Chanel suit, perfectly coiffed for the meeting she'd never scheduled. How long has she been waiting? 20 minutes. Should I have security escort her out? No, I smiled, picking up my simple blazer from the coat rack. I'll handle this one personally. Time for my afternoon rounds anyway. I switched my CEO nameplate to face the wall, grabbed some filing folders, and took the executive elevator down to the lobby. As always, I used my secondary ID badge, the one that identified me as Margaret Chen, Executive Administrative Assistant, rather than Margaret Chen, CEO. Lauren was pacing the marble lobby, phone in hand. This is ridiculous. Don't they know who my husband is? Who I am? Good afternoon, Lauren, I called, adjusting my reading glasses. Visiting the office again. Her face fell when she saw me. Oh, Margaret, I'm actually here for an important meeting with the CEO. Really? I pretended to check the scheduling tablet I carried. I don't see any appointments on the calendar. There must be a mistake. This gala is too important to ignore. The CEO must understand that having the Whitman family name associated with Meridian would be invaluable. I suppressed a smile, remembering how she'd specifically asked me not to mention my embarrassing secretary job at her last dinner party. The CEO is very particular about protocol, Lauren. All meetings must be properly scheduled through the appropriate channels. But I'm family, she protested. Surely you could just walk me up. Put in a good word. That's what assistants do, right? The subtle condescension in her voice was familiar. Lauren had spent the 2 years since marrying my son Thomas trying to minimize my existence to a series of convenient stereotypes. The aging secretary, the embarrassing mother-in-law, the woman who simply didn't understand their world. I'm afraid it doesn't work that way, I said, leading her toward the exit. But if you'd like to submit a formal proposal for your charity event, I'd be happy to pass it along. A proposal? I don't write proposals. I make things happen. She pulled out a glossy brochure. Just make sure the CEO sees this. It's for the annual Whitman Foundation Gala. Very exclusive. I took the brochure, already knowing what I find. Lauren's charity events were notorious for spending more on appearances than actual causes. Last year's gala had allocated 80% of its budget to vintage champagne and only 5% to its supposed beneficiaries. I'll see that it reaches the appropriate desk, I promised, knowing it would end up in the same place as her previous requests. My needs further evaluation file. Perfect, she brightened. And Margaret? Maybe don't mention to anyone that we're related. No offense, but I'm trying to maintain a certain image here. Of course, I nodded. We wouldn't want anyone to know that Thomas Whitman's wife is related to a mere secretary. The sarcasm flew right past her. Exactly. You do understand. Oh, and for Thomas's birthday dinner next week, we're keeping it intimate. Just our social circle. You understand, right? I understood perfectly. I also understood that the intimate dinner was being held at La Cirque, where I happened to be a majority owner. Not that Lauren had ever bothered to learn such details about her mother-in-law's life. Will you be needing the family pearls for the occasion? I asked innocently, referring to the heirloom necklace she often borrowed for special events. Oh yes. Could you drop them off with my housekeeper? It's better if you use the service entrance. I watched her stride away, designer heels clicking on marble, completely unaware that she just asked the CEO of a Fortune 500 company to use the service entrance of her townhouse. Back in my office, David was trying not to laugh. Service entrance? Apparently, I'm not proper company entrance material. I picked up Lauren's gala brochure. Pull up the financials for the Whitman Foundation, please. Let's see what we're really dealing with. The numbers told the usual story. Lauren's foundation was more facade than philanthropy, a way to throw expensive parties under the guise of charitable giving. Meanwhile, Meridian's actual charitable foundation, which I ran quietly under a different name, had funded dozens of education and community development projects. Should I send the standard rejection letter? David asked. Not yet. I pulled up Thomas's contact. My son, unlike his wife, had inherited my belief in substantive work over social climbing. Let's give Lauren one more chance to learn about real value. I drafted a quick email. Dear Mrs. Whitman, your gala proposal has been reviewed. While Meridian cannot support the event in its current form, we would be interested in discussing a partnership under the following conditions. A minimum of 75% of all funds must go directly to beneficiaries. The event must include representatives from the communities being served. All organizers must complete our corporate social responsibility training. The CEO would be happy to discuss this personally, but first requests that you spend 1 week working with our community outreach team to understand Meridian's philanthropic priorities. Please contact Margaret Chen to schedule your orientation. Regards, Office of the CEO. That's a bit devious, David grinned. Sometimes the best lessons come from unexpected teachers. I picked up my secretary badge, and sometimes the most valuable networking happens in the most humble places. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. Mom, Lauren's freaking out about some Meridian email. Should I tell her? Not yet, I replied. Let's see if she's ready to learn what real influence looks like. Sometimes the most powerful position isn't the one with the fanciest title, but the one that lets you teach essential truths about respect, dignity, and genuine worth. And sometimes the best way to handle someone who judges by appearances is to let them reveal exactly who they are, before showing them exactly who you are. David, I called, please clear my schedule for next week's community outreach training. I think it's time for some hands-on CEO involvement. Lauren arrived for her community outreach orientation wearing Louboutins and a grimace. She stood in Meridian's community center, surrounded by folding tables and volunteer workers, looking like she'd stepped into a foreign country. Margaret will be your supervisor this week, David informed her, fighting to keep his face neutral. She's been running these programs for 20 years. 20 years. Lauren's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. And you never? Advanced? I handed her a volunteer apron. Some positions are more advanced than they appear. Shall we begin? The first task was sorting donations for our education initiative. Lauren held up a gently used backpack as if it might bite her. Can't we just buy new ones? Sometimes the most valuable things aren't the most expensive, I said, showing her the handwritten note inside. This backpack got me through college. Hope it helps someone else dream big. By lunch, her manicure was slightly chipped, and her designer outfit had gathered some dust. But I noticed her carefully folding each donated item, reading every note, starting to see the stories behind the statistics. These are all local families, she asked, reviewing the distribution lists. The same communities your gala claims to serve, I pointed out, though I don't see many of them on your event guest list. She had the grace to look embarrassed. The tickets are rather expensive, and the champagne budget could fund 50 scholarships, I added mildly. Interesting choice of priorities. The afternoon brought a surprise visit from Thomas, who often helped with our STEM education program. Lauren stared as her husband confidently navigated the community center, high-fiving kids and checking in with regular volunteers. You never told me you did this, she said when he joined us. You never asked about my volunteer work, he replied quietly. You were always more interested in my social connections. But this is, she gestured around, struggling to reconcile her husband's prestigious business image with the man teaching coding to inner-city kids. Important? I suggested. Meaningful? Perhaps even more influential than your gala circuit. Before she could respond, a young woman approached our table. Mrs. Chen. I got in. Lauren watched in confusion as Maria, one of our scholarship recipients, hugged me tightly. Harvard Medical School, Maria announced proudly, just like we planned when I was 12 and you taught me to believe in impossible dreams. Nothing's impossible with the right support system, I smiled, remembering the shy girl who'd first come to our homework club. Maria's our first-generation college graduate, I explained to Lauren. Soon to be our first doctor. And it all started because the CEO of Meridian believed in community investment, Maria added. I still can't believe I get to thank her in person at next month's scholarship ceremony. Lauren's head snapped up. You've met the CEO. Maria looked confused. Of course, she's right. Very involved in our programs, I interrupted smoothly. Speaking of which, Maria, could you show Lauren our medical internship files? Since she's interested in healthcare initiatives. As Maria led Lauren away, Thomas stayed behind. How long are you going to let this continue, Mom? Until she learns to see value beyond status, I said, watching Lauren gradually relax as Maria shared her story. Until she understands that real influence isn't about who you know, but who you help. And the gala? Oh, I'll approve it, I smiled. Once she revises it to actually serve the community rather than her social aspirations. By day 3, Lauren had traded her designer clothes for practical wear. I caught her spending her lunch break helping a teenager with college applications. Her phone, usually glued to her hand for social media updates, stayed largely forgotten in her bag. You know, she said thoughtfully as we cleaned up, we could incorporate some of these success stories into the gala. Actually invite the scholarship recipients, let them speak about their experiences. Instead of hiring that celebrity speaker. Well, their stories are more relevant, she paused. I think I need to completely rework the proposal. The CEO would probably appreciate that approach, I noted. Lauren spent the next 2 days revising her plans, consulting with program coordinators and beneficiaries. The new proposal showed a genuine shift in perspective. Community-focused programs, reasonable operational costs, and actual involvement from the populations being served. It's not as glamorous, she admitted, handing me the updated proposal. But it's more meaningful. Meaningful usually outlasts glamorous, I offered. Would you like me to submit this to the CEO now? She hesitated. Actually, could we implement some of these changes regardless of corporate sponsorship? I've been thinking about my foundation's real purpose. I sat back, seeing real growth in the woman who'd once dismissed me as just a secretary. The CEO will be very interested in this evolution, I said carefully. In fact, she's been watching your progress all week. Lauren looked around the empty community center. She has. Very closely. I pulled out my executive ID badge and laid it on the table. Some lessons are best taught from unexpected positions. The color drained from her face as realization dawned. But all this time I've been exactly who I've always been, I said gently, someone who believes in the power of looking beyond surfaces to see real value. She stared at the badge, then at me, then at the community center where she'd spent the week learning what genuine influence looks like. The service entrance? She whispered, mortified. Water under the bridge, I assured her. Though perhaps we should discuss your revised gala plans over dinner. The front door of your house will do just fine. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from being humbled, and sometimes the best teachers are the ones we least expect. As Lauren struggled to reconcile her previous assumptions with reality, I saw something new in her eyes. Respect earned rather than demanded, understanding rather than judgment. The transformed Whitman Foundation Gala bore little resemblance to its previous incarnations. Gone were the crystal champagne fountains and celebrity appearances. Instead, Meridian Towers Community Hall was filled with a genuine cross-section of our city. Scholarship recipients, program volunteers, community leaders, and yes, some of Lauren's social circle, though they were now participants rather than mere spectators. Lauren stood at the podium, wearing a simple black dress and the family pearls, delivered, this time, through the front door. When I first planned this event, I thought influence meant knowing the right people, she began. Then I spent a week learning from someone I thought I knew, only to discover I hadn't known her at all. She looked at me, sitting quietly beside Thomas. My mother-in-law taught me that real power isn't about who you impress, but who you help. Tonight, instead of hearing from me, you'll hear from the people who actually do the work that matters. Maria took the stage to share her journey from Homework Club to Harvard Medical School. Community organizers presented their initiatives, now fully funded by the Reformed Foundation. Even Thomas spoke about his years of quiet volunteer work, no longer needing to hide his community involvement from his wife's social expectations. The Whitman Foundation is honored to announce our new partnership with Meridian Global, Lauren concluded, though perhaps I should let the CEO share the details. A murmur ran through her old social circle as I rose and walked to the podium. Several of them had been at the parties where Lauren had apologetically explained her mother-in-law's unfortunate occupation. Thank you, Lauren, I smiled. Though I believe you already know all the details, having spent the last month helping develop them from the ground up. The whispers grew louder as recognition dawned. The just a secretary they dismissed at countless events was actually the CEO they'd been desperately trying to meet. Our new initiative, I continued, will focus on expanding educational access and community development, and it will be led by our new Director of Community Relations, if she accepts the position. I turned to Lauren. What do you say? Ready to make your influence really count? Lauren's eyes widened. But after how I treated you. You learned, you grew, you changed, I said simply. That's what good leaders do. The following months brought remarkable changes. Lauren traded her social media photos of luxury events for posts about community achievements. Her former society friends either adapted to the new reality or drifted away, replaced by genuine relationships with people she would have once overlooked. Did you know, she told me one day as we sorted donations together, that Maria's mother makes the most amazing empanadas. She's teaching me her recipe. Through the service entrance, I teased gently. She blushed. I deserved that. I was so focused on climbing the social ladder that I couldn't see what really mattered. And now? She gestured to the community center, where Thomas was teaching coding while their toddler played with the after-school program kids. Now I understand that real class isn't about which entrance you use, it's about making sure everyone has access to opportunities. Speaking of opportunities, I pulled out a folder. The board approved your proposal for expanding the education initiative. Really? She grabbed the folder eagerly, then paused. You know, I used to think being CEO meant having power over people. But watching you, I've learned it's really about empowering people. I touched the family pearls she wore, no longer as a status symbol, but as a reminder of lessons learned. Your foundation gala is coming up again. Any plans for the guest list? Well, she smiled. I thought we'd start with a cooking class led by Maria's mother, followed by a presentation from our scholarship recipients. Though we might need to use both entrances, we've got quite a community to accommodate. Sometimes the most powerful transformations come from having our prejudices dismantled piece by piece, and sometimes the best revenge against snobbery is simply showing someone a better way to live. Mom, Lauren said quietly, using the title she once refused to speak, thank you for not giving up on me. That's what family does, I replied. We see past the surface to the potential underneath. Together, we watched our growing community fill the center with purpose and connection, proving that real influence isn't measured in social status or corporate titles, but in the lives we touch and the changes we inspire. And if some of Lauren's former social circle now had to make appointments to meet with the just a secretary he'd once dismissed, well, that was just an extra lesson in the price of prejudice and the value of respect.